Today on the Ave Podcast, we're at the halfway point of the NBA season, and there's no better time than right now to break down the first half, right? So I'm joined by Bill Gagne of the World City Hoops podcast as we break down our all-NBA picks from the first half of the year, if the success of the Utah Jazz and Phoenix Suns is sustainable, if we should remove the unicorn moniker from Kristaps Porzingis. Plus, we discuss Brooklyn picking up Blake Griffin, if the Lakers and the Nets are still the favorites to meet up in the NBA Finals. Plus, we share our thoughts on the All-Star Game Day, and so much more. South Shore Ave is available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including places like Spotify and Apple Podcasts for starters, and anywhere else in between. Listen, rate, review, and subscribe to all of my shows. Hit the favorite button, hit the like button, and I'll let you in on a little secret in the game of life, all right? Whenever you're mapping out the direction of your life, you click on all the 5 stars when you listen to a podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. It's words to grow on. And to check out my entire catalog of podcast shows, make sure you subscribe to SouthShoreAve.com. Once again, that's SouthShoreAve.com. It's the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio. And also, knowing is half the battle.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast. My guest today has his own podcast. I was his first guest on his podcast. And a few years ago, he was not the most sarcastic voice during our boys' trip to the NBA Summer League pilgrimage in 2018. That's a lie. He really wasn't a sarcastic person. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bill Gagne of the World City Podcast to the show. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Kevin. Thank you for having me. I'm glad I could return the favor. And I did not know you were going to bring that up. I did not know I was sarcastic. I thought it was more condescending.
Well, yes, that's true. That's my mistake. You were actually more condescending. It was actually like a nice blend of condescending and sarcastic. It was like a cocktail. It was nice. It matched the mood of Vegas. I liked it. It was kind of cool.
Between that and my brother-in-law saying that there was going to be civil war, I mean, hey, they'd mix it up.
What was funny though is I remember that weekend. That was a crazy weekend for me. I remember because I had a wedding to go to that same weekend, and I had a cast on my I had a severely sprained ankle. I was in a cast, and I basically flew. I got VIP treatment for the airline, not coming back though, but going. I got it going at least. And then I had to do the Dukes of Hazzard, basically, like getting up first thing in the morning, hopping on a plane to San Francisco and going to the wedding and then coming back first. All I remember is the Monday, the last day we were there for the games. All I remember is I was literally watching the games and falling asleep, dropping my phone on the floor, picking it back up, texting, falling asleep, rinse and repeat. Like that was my whole experience that Monday. Like I was such a mess when I got back to Vegas, but I will do it again though. It was a lot of fun. Honestly,
when life goes back to normal, I already talked to Sunday, and it's like NBA Summer League next summer already on my list.
Oh, that's
I've already created a separate bank account for that.
Yeah, there's a couple of places I need to visit. That all got blown up in 2020. I'm like overcompensating for 2022 if everything opens up back then. So, but the summer league being one of them. Yes, I totally agree.
That's high on my list.
I totally agree. We because usually it's every 2 years. Basically, you realize if not for COVID, we could have saw Zion for like half a game.
I was still super disappointed that first trip because I just wanted to see Luka, and he wasn't even there.
He didn't even play. Yeah. Well, we saw Young, we saw Ayton, we saw some guys. We saw your boy Kevin Knox.
My boy Kevin Knox. Yeah, it's funny because you're watching them all play, and I don't know what was better, being in the gym and feeling like you're at a summer tournament, or watching all the NBA coaches and former NBA players walk around in the crowds. You know, as being somebody who's 6'3", that was the only place I've ever been in my entire life where I felt short.
Or you just felt like a regular sized person. Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking around like, oh, that guy's 6'11", that guy's 6'9". Oh, there's Mehmet Okur. Oh, there's Tiago Splitter. Oh, there's Alvin Gentry. It was amazing.
What I remember, what was crazy, I remember there was a moment where I missed this, actually. I think this is when I left for the day to go to the wedding. But I remember there was a point where I think it was like Houston, like Chris Paul and somebody was talking in Houston, and somebody was talking. Remember that there was like a big trade, I think, around that time. I'm just trying to remember what it was. But I remember there was I wish I could remember now, but there was some commotion that was happening. And I remember it was like huge news. And I remember everybody was like, all of a sudden it's like you looked up and within a couple of hours it was like it was on ESPN and all that stuff. I wish I remember what the trade was. It was something at that time.
Super cool because there were so many NBA players that would show up to the summer league and sit courtside. Mm-hmm. And Sunday and I actually went to the Vegas WNBA game. Yeah, and we were sitting there, and in walks DeMar DeRozan, and I think Damian Lillard. They were working out after the game because one of the coaches for the Vegas team, the assistant coaches, was somebody that we knew. Yes. So we stuck around, and then DeMar and Dame showed up to work out, and you're like, damn, this is, you're just like in the middle of the NBA. Everybody's here.
Yeah, it's basically it's become the mecca, the meeting spot. Like that first weekend of summer league is the best time to go. It's the best time to go because everybody's there. Everybody congregates there. It's the best time. You know. So
my thing was, I'm such a nerd is that I was looking at all the reporters. Hey, there's Stephen A. Hey, there's Royce Young. Hey, there's Dave McMenamin. That's how much of a loser I was.
I was looking for Roz Gold. I didn't see her, though.
You and I had different goals.
Yeah, I'm just a little disappointed. But I remember there was a moment, too, and I remember where you're just like, yo, the amount of power that was sitting on these three seats. And I remember it was Steve Ballmer and Mark Cuban and Jerry West was sitting in between the two of them. And they were just sitting there conversing. I was more watching them talk than watching the game. Because I'm like, yo, I'm like, what the hell is that conversation like right now?
I remember we were walking in the halls, and your brother saw Danny Ainge. And Danny Ainge was like in the corner eating a hot dog. And we're walking by, and Danny Ainge looks up, and he sees your brother make eye contact. And he was like, oh, man. And then he literally switches into superstar mode. He's like, all smiles. Hey, how's it going? And your brother says, oh, I'm a big fan. And they take a picture. And the minute your brother lets go of his hand, Danny Ainge is back to the hot dog. Like, that's a mission. I thought that's impressive.
Yeah, because that's the world, right? Like they live in, like, and for those guys too, like even a Danny Ainge, yeah, he wasn't a star, but I mean, you know, you're a basketball junkie, especially if you're our age. You remember who the hell Danny Ainge was. You know what I mean? He had an impact on your life because you spent probably like half of your childhood rooting against him. And
whether it was the Celtics, the Suns, the Blazers.
Yeah, so you want so in that moment, hell yeah, you want to shake his hand. I know he's eating a hot dog, but you're like, damn, like because it's all you're thinking about is your childhood memories, your youth. That's all you're thinking about when you see this person. Yeah. All those memories come back. And it's like you want to shake their hand for those memories they created, or some of those memories they created. So I get it.
The worst one I saw was Alvin Gentry was in line to get a drink, and he's a couple people in front of me. And these people these people are looking at him, and they recognize him, but they don't know who he is. And he's just sitting there going, yeah, you're right, thanks. Okay. Who are you? And he's just like, I'm Alvin Gentry. Oh, yeah, you're a player? No, I'm a coach. Yeah, you're a coach. I thought, this poor guy just wants a Coke.
But that's part of the life, though, man. That's part of the life. You know, like that's the trade-off, right? Millions of dollars doing something you love, and you know, like you're getting paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, to either coach, watch, or play the game.
Yeah.
If that's the trade-off, I mean, you know, most people will live with it. You know, it is what it is. But
yeah, if you're a basketball junkie, you think it's the best thing in the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so all that to say that yes, we will be going back.
I'll try to be nicer next trip.
No. Keep the blend. Keep the sarcastic, condescending cocktail going. It's fine.
Got it.
It's fine. I enjoyed it. It's fine. So we're about halfway through the halfway mark of the NBA season. So essentially, let's get to business, man. I want to break down our all NBA squads that we're going to do on the fly. But let's get to this All-Star game, or this All-Star day, I guess you want to call it, on Sunday. What were your thoughts on the All-Star day? I can't even call it a weekend.
Calvin, I did not watch it.
Wow, really?
Dude, I have probably not watched a full All-Star game in 15 years. Last year I watched part of the Elam ending thing with Kobe. But, I mean, we're already in the middle of a season where defense has been banned. Now, why do I want to watch the All-Star game when they're going to mail it in? I heard LeBron only played one half. You know, growing up, when was the last time you said, I cannot wait to watch the All-Star game?
Well, you know what's funny?
Honestly.
You know what's for me, I guess this is where the basketball junkie in me comes in. I still watch it every year, but I will say this. So first of all, for me, because you know how it is, me that we both live in Ontario, All-Star weekend usually falls on the same weekend as Family Day weekend, right? Which is a long weekend for us.
Yeah.
So when this weekend came, I was like almost going into long weekend mode, and I had to keep constantly shaking myself out of it, right? Knowing that I'm like, Monday's not a holiday. The kids are going to be doing school. Like I got to shake out of this. Like I was just in such a relaxed mode, and I'm like, I can't be relaxed because it's not a long weekend. But I'm so programmed the last like 10 years or whenever since this weekend came to pass. Like, or actually, it was longer than that. I think it was 2008. Yeah. So I'm just so conditioned in my mind to being like, I'm gonna have an off day on Monday, you know. So
if you were to survey me and say, look, you can watch the All-Star game for 3 hours, or you can watch reruns of Murder, She Wrote with Angela Lansbury.
You think it's that bad?
It's going to be a tough choice. I just can't. It offends my sensibilities. I just can't.
Well, look, I mean, like Angela Lansbury, she had skills. Like she was, you know, she did her thing she solved a lot of cases. She solved a lot of cases, usually within the 50-minute mark, which is always amazing. She was very efficient that way. She was very efficient that way. It never rang past the 50 minutes. Like, you know, like she was very efficient.
And how many people do you think lived in that town? There's a lot of murders in that small town.
Yeah. You might want to move.
Or never visit. But I'm looking at the numbers here, right? And you're seeing LeBron 13 minutes, Giannis 19 minutes, 35 points. It was 170 to 150.
Yeah, and like, sorry, and you know what? And it brings me to my next point, because I'm starting to wonder, right? And you're probably gonna agree with this the way you're leaning right now. I'm starting to wonder if maybe we should just postpone the All-Star game for like a year or two and just give it back that juice like they did. Remember when there was a point, I think it was probably the late 90s, where they just canceled the dunk contest. They just canceled it for a year, and it was just the old time game and the 3-point shootout, and it was just the All-Star game. And then I think so it went maybe about 2 years without an All-Star game in between. Without a dunk contest in between.
They canceled the Legends game first because they had too many injuries.
Well, yeah. I mean, no 60-year-old should be running up and down the court, you know, trying to cross over a man. Like, after they've played 20 years in the league, like, let them be. They could just watch the game. It's fine.
So I think, for me, I just like last year, the Elam ending, the whole Kobe thing was great. But I feel like there needs to be some emotional attachment. The only All-Star game I can really remember, apart from that, is the one Magic was in. When he played when he got diagnosed with HIV. That's the only one that I remember having any impact on me, other than, you know, a bunch of layups and dunks and guys messing around, really.
It's becoming... You know, I myself, I can't lie. Like I said, the reason why I bring that up is I'm personally tired of watching the lackluster All-Star games. I've been watching them far more than you have, I guess, but Especially the last 6-7 years, like especially because when Kobe was still like the number one guy on the team, like he had a way of kind of like playing so hard even during that game. It was like everybody kind of carried along with that. You know what I mean? So it was like it wasn't like not the most exciting game some years, but guys after about the first quarter started playing hard. You know what I mean?
But you know what that might have been too was that year when Kobe was in his prime and carrying through his prime, that's when LeBron and KD and those guys were just coming in. So they're coming in like, oh, this is a glorified pickup game, but they still were competing because you had Kobe dialing it up and you had the young guns looking to maybe take a run at the old guys, right?
Yeah.
Now, they're all the same age. You know, they're all been around each other, played AAU, played all these things. They all know each other. Very different now.
They've made it more, especially in the last 6-7 years, they've made it more gimmicky. Like now it's, you know, they got team captains that pick it now, and you know, whatever case, some years it's fine. Like I said, the one last year with you know, the Kobe inspired All-Star game, that actually was a great All-Star game. Especially the end. The end was like probably one of the best that I've seen in like a very long time. And I think maybe a couple of years before that, it was actually competitive. It's almost like once that initial gimmick, after the year after that initial gimmick comes through, it's like it just goes back to being like a lackluster game.
They got to keep trying stuff to figure it out. One thing I do like about the NBA versus other pro sports leagues is that they're willing to try new things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a plus, especially if they fall on their face. Then you can sit there and analyze and say, did this suck because the idea sucked, or did it suck because we didn't execute the idea to its best potential, or did we tweak this? I like that about the NBA, that they're always trying new things.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say abandon the All-Star game altogether, but maybe find a way to condense it or make it more player-friendly, but they might want to be there because now it's this 5-day commitment, whereas if you did something where you had the All-Star game, the dunk contest, and you just put it all into maybe one day as opposed to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe you might get more from it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a very, I mean, it's other than like the playoffs and NBA Finals, it's by far the biggest weekend or the biggest event for the NBA that they have on their calendar. Like, there's no question about that. All the celebrities that come through, all the parties and the economy it generates, you know, in whatever city that it's in during that time, like you can't dispute that. You know what I mean? But the game itself, it's no different than other leagues now. Where the All-Star game, to touch on your point, was like it was culturally relevant. It was important, and it's not as impactful now. Like honestly, the 3-point contest is something that's probably like the money event right now, but I don't know, man. Like even the dunk contest, like, you know, and it's not the, you know, you look back in the day, like now it's at a point now where it's like, okay, like Obi Toppin, Anthony Simons and Cassius Stanley played in it. Unless you're a die-hard, like I mean a die-hard basketball fan, you're like, who the hell are any of these people? You know what I mean? So it's like not even like the semi-stars are even competing in things like this now. So you're just kind of like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, whereas you'll get the big names in the 3-point shootout, right?
Yeah. And it's exciting. Like Steph Curry, like that, you know, like him and Conley, like they both balled out in that 3-point contest. And, you know, and Steph Curry made it entertaining because it went down literally to the last shot. You know, so that event is for some reason has always held its weight in gold, but now it's, and I still don't mind the weekend because sometimes you get good events, like the 3-point contest is always the one that's always great. I think you need to cancel the celebrity game. Don't do that anymore. I essentially think you should cancel the rookie game. Don't even do that anymore either. I think the rookie game has been useless for like the last, I don't know, honestly, maybe at least 20 years, if not more.
But you and I look at it from the point of we love basketball. Mm-hmm. The NBA looks at it as
it's a
revenue-generating real estate,
right? And it's a celebration too, right? So yeah. I get all of it. Go on, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So if they have 3 days, they are dominating 3 full days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's all NBA. Nobody's competing with them on TV. They're going at it. They're never going to give up that revenue.
No,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I get it. But I'm just saying because I guess the basketball fan in me, like, yeah, I want to see at least like Matador defense, maybe. It's not even at that level. It's past that now. Like, it's like just letting guys go to the basket and dunk it for like full quarters on end. It's like, okay, like this is like the 30th dunk, and it's not even. We're like 5 minutes into like the second quarter. We've already got about 30 dunks.
What upsets me too is the All-Star game's over Sunday. I'm not going to get a game on TV till Thursday.
That's okay. Like I said, that part of it I understand, but I'm kind of like, it's funny because I know, the reason obviously why they did this game, and I know a lot of people are opposed to having this weekend, even this game, because of the pandemic and stuff. So I totally get that, and you know what? And looking back on it now, maybe this was probably the year to postpone the game, just so you can give it back that initial boost of life again, the actual game itself. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I can compare it to? It's almost like, actually, let me save the comparison. Let me not get myself in trouble. But but like it's just one of those things. Like I feel like they I don't know, man. It's like they got to do something with the actual game. Like that game used to mean something, and to me, it doesn't really mean. It means everything until tip off, and then it doesn't mean anything after that. Like really like a. I can't even say it's a scrimmage. It's not even a scrimmage because the scrimmages is more intense. It's not even a scrimmage. I don't like it. I don't like that part of it at all. I wish it was better in that aspect.
I can't spend my free time watching a layup line. I mean, that's what you're watching. You're watching shooting drills. You're watching layup line. That's what you're watching. And then I got to wait 4 days to watch a real game.
Yeah.
And then that's, to me, it's just like, it kills that part of it because basketball for me is always on TV in the background.
Well, you know what? On that note, then, so let's we'll touch on some questions before we pick our NBA teams. But so far we're watching I was going to say, so far we're watching the success of Utah in terms of being the best team in the league so far at this point of the season. Is Utah's success sustainable?
I'm hard pressed to say no, but at the same time, do they have that one guy down the stretch who's going to get you that bucket, right? Do you have the star power, those closers to make it happen? Can they make a deep playoff run? Sure. Do they have the synergy going that can make it work? They defend well. They've got good ball movement. They've got shooters, defenders. They've got depth. To me, the question is Donovan Mitchell and to a lesser extent Mike Conley, are they going to be the scorers that come through when they need a bucket? When the game slows down, you can't always generate offense from your defense. Sooner or later, you need to manufacture points. Can you do that? They seem to have done a great job so far, but we'll see when the big bright lights are on and they got to come through against the Clippers or the Lakers, or, hey, look at what the Nuggets did last year and they caught fire. Or do you really want to play a motivated Luka Doncic in a 7-game series? I don't.
I know Utah, they always have this misconception of being this boring team. They're kind of like the Spurs in a sense where you just see the name, the team name, the city, and you're just like, that's going to be a boring game. And really, with them, it's based on that whole Stockton and Malone thing, right? Like the whole pick and roll, just their efficient offense, which was great, but it wasn't always the most exciting to watch, especially as they got older, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, their prime was almost 30 years ago. Like, to me, they were exciting to watch when Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer were there. And to me, they're exciting now. Like, as a fan, who doesn't like watching Donovan Mitchell play? Who doesn't like watching Michael Conley hoop? Like, the way that team plays on both ends of the floor, like, if you're a basketball junkie, to me, they're like a top 5 team to watch.
They're well coached. They are well coached. One thing that Jerry Sloan, even with the boring Utah teams, they ran great stuff. When he had Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer, they were not a super talented team. I mean, you had Andrei Kirilenko, who may have had the best NBA nickname of AK-47 ever.
And
they
ran
an
off-court agreement. He had the best off-court agreement. We won't get into that, but go on.
Yeah, no, we'll keep that between you and me. And they ran great on-ball and secondary ball play. They were great to watch if you loved basketball. If you loved the superstars in the one-on-one, you weren't super going to get into that. I love Darren Williams because he was just a physical, stocky, powerful guard who could just play a ton, and then the wheels kind of fell off the bus as he got older.
Yeah.
But I think this Utah team with Quinn Snyder, who is revered as an excellent coach, is well put together. They have secondary ball handlers on the bench in Joe Ingles and Jordan Clarkson, who is definitely playing above what you thought he was, maybe with the Lakers, because you're just like, what's this guy going to be? And now he's Sixth Man of the Year candidate.
Yeah. I think he has it running away right now, that award.
Yeah. You have to say that Utah is the biggest surprise of the season, because there's no way anybody sat there and said, yeah, I think the Utah Jazz will have the best record in the NBA.
Yeah, I think you thought they were going to be good. You thought they were going to be a playoff team, but here's the thing, though, right? Like every couple of years or so, there's always a team that kind of pops up on that elite level, and we always think it's going to be maybe a certain team, and then all of a sudden it's another one that comes and has that maybe had some playoff scars in the past, and they just kind of leapfrog everything, right? Like
remember the Hawks 5 years ago?
Well, I'll even take it further. Like even 10 years ago, right? With the the Eastern Conference? Like we all thought it was going to be Chicago, right? Especially when the Big Three in Miami got together. We all thought it was going to be Derrick Rose, that they're going to be having these superhuman battles, in the playoffs, and then Derrick Rose gets hurt. Boston gets a little older. Then all of a sudden, Paul George and the Pacers pop up. And next thing you know, they're battling the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, right?
Yep.
And then, you go a few years after that, you look at the Clippers, right? And everybody thought Lob City, they were going to take that leap. They were going to be next, especially after the Spurs won. They're going to be the next team. They're ready to go. Then you know what happened? A team up the coast in the Bay Area, all of a sudden, like
exploded.
Yeah, they did a Superman leap above them, and they basically owned the league for the next 5 years. And then I think even this year, like, we thought it was going to be Denver because they made the conference finals, and looked like Jamal Murray took a leap. And you're looking at all the pieces that are getting together. Another year of Michael Porter Jr. getting better and getting more experience and relatively
I wasn't
healthy
drinking that Kool-Aid.
I like Michael Porter Jr. But the thing is, you thought it was going to be. You wouldn't have been surprised if it was going to be that team. But then injuries and everything else kind of like took that team in a bit. Then all of a sudden, now it's Utah. You look up and Utah's on the top of the mountain so far, and they're kind of running away with the conference, at least so far.
Well, they're built. Like, you got to manufacture your team. It's not put a bunch of studs together and win. Denver clearly is hurting right now from losing Jeremy Grant and some of their depth. So that's a problem for them. And Michael Porter Jr. hasn't advanced as much. And as great as Jamal Murray is,
and he's been hurt.
I don't think it was realistic to expect him to be going for 50 burgers all the time like he did in the bubble.
Right.
It just wasn't realistic. And even when you think teams are well put together, how many people last year thought, man, the Clippers, how are you going to beat that team? And you saw the wheels come off the bus, and they're still having problems this year closing games out, which is surprising given the talent of closers they have with Kawhi and Paul George. But they don't have a point guard to organize them, and once it gets tight, they're kind of lost. So you never know until the games start getting played. And even now, we're looking at teams. Did you think Boston was going to be 500 right now?
Yeah.
We don't know. And then you have other teams like, I didn't think Charlotte was going to be this good. I didn't think the Knicks, I was sure the Knicks were going to suck. The Knicks are decent.
Yeah, the Knicks have been solid. They've been more than decent. They've been solid this year.
So it's so hard to tell year to year. You can have themes that carry through. Do you think, given where we are, if AD comes back healthy, are the Lakers not still your favorite, or are you picking somebody else?
Well, that's a question we're gonna knock over in the next little bit, but like that's gonna be interesting too. Like his injury history kind of scares me, to be honest with you too. So,
yeah.
But it's gonna be. I mean, we know the type of player that he is, but it's gonna be interesting when he comes back. Like I said, we'll touch on that in a little bit, but I don't know. Like I feel like with Utah, like I think surprisingly, like this is sustainable because this is not like a team that just went from being shit to all of a sudden. Now they're this team and we don't know what's going to happen with them. Like, they've had some playoff wars. You know what I mean? Like, even last year, like, really and truly, if they had Bogdanovich in the bubble, they were probably at least making the second round. Like, they were a Hail Mary 3 from playing the Clippers themselves. You know what I mean? Like, if that ball didn't go in and out on that Mike Conley 3, there is very well them playing the Clippers and not Denver, right? So, like, I mean...
You know what else they have? They have continuity. They have guys who have been in that system, who've played together, who know how to play together, who just know how to play. Like Joe Ingles he's not a superstar. Like I'm not trying to make him out to be this all-star.
But he's a good
player.
Yeah, for that, he's a great role player for that team, especially. 100%.
And you need those guys. He is a guy who, on any given night, if something's not going right, he may win you a few games in a season. He could win you a playoff game with what he can do. Hey, you need that. So, I mean, I guess the question I'm going to ask here is, are you talking about is this sustainable for Utah in the regular season, or is this sustainable for them as a playoff deep threat?
Basically, I think that question goes for both scenarios. I think it's sustainable for the regular season, again, health permitting and no outbreaks permitting. And then I think, too, I think, again, because they had those playoff wars, they've had a 3 or 4 year playoff run, too, where, they've been getting knocked out the first round, second round, but they've been through it, is what I'm saying, right? Like, this isn't Donovan Mitchell's first rodeo going into the situation. And all these players they've been through it. So I don't think, the scenarios now coming up against them, it's not going to be something that's foreign to them. You know what I mean? You're looking at Conley, I guess we were saying before, like he's going to own that 6-man role. Clarkson, I mean. But Conley himself, though, like he himself has been properly acclimated to Utah and basically its culture. And I think that's one of the very underrated facts. He did not have a good year last year. He didn't acclimate himself well to the culture. He was hurt. You know what I mean? And he just didn't feel like he fit in totally, which was a little surprising. But now he fits in. Like he basically and he's been healthy this year, right?
I listened to Zach Lowe talk about this, and the one thing they said was, Mike Conley spent his whole career playing in Memphis and in a certain style of play. It was him, Zebo, Marc Gasol. He was running the same thing all the time. Now you're going to move from that to a player movement, ball movement offense with Quinn Snyder. He's going to have some interest. Yeah, it's going to take. He's not going to take to it right away. And they're like, now you're seeing him understand it, deal with it, and excel in the way that everybody thought he was supposed to last. And they just said he just needed time. And you're going, oh, all right, well, that makes sense,
Yeah, and like I said again, he's healthy too, so that helps. Yeah. And then you add that to the consistent growth of Mitchell and even Gobert, because I think Gobert is probably having his best year. Like looking back on it now, when you add all those things together, especially with Bogdan coming back as well. Favors, coming back, like signing back as a free agent, coming back to Utah.
That's a super underrated move, by the way.
Yeah. Like when we look at all that, it's like we shouldn't be we shouldn't be totally surprised. Like we should be surprised, but not like the hat blowing off our heads when thinking about this situation, right? It's like you're looking back on it now. It's like, yeah, you can see where all this recipe is coming from.
You thought they were going to be good. You just didn't think they were going to be this good.
No, absolutely. But like they're a solid team. Like when they're on TV now, I'm kind of like, and it's funny because I still go through that myself. Where I'm like, it's Utah. Wait a minute, what am I doing? No, it's a good team. Let me watch them. For like a split second, I always go, it's you. And then I'm like, no. What am I doing? It's Mitchell. Is Conley? Is Clarkson? Like, no. Let me watch this.
Is it the uniforms that turn you off?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. Because the last game I watched them play was right before the All-Star break when they played Philly, and that was a good game, man. Like, they're a good team to watch. They're definitely a good team to watch. I should be talking about Philly if their success is sustainable, but I'm going to pivot another way. The Knicks. Is the Knicks' success sustainable?
That's a very easy question to answer, and it's no if you expect them to win half their games, because their opponents are shooting 29% on open three-pointers. And the league average is somewhere around 40.
36, 37%.
Right? Now, I don't want that to take away from how exciting it is to have the Knicks being good.
Yeah.
Or at least not being garbage. Right? And so my question to you, given what's going on, do you think Brooklyn will ever be New York's team, or if the Knicks are good again, is it just, oh yeah, right, we're Knicks town?
Oh no, that's an easy question to answer. It's going to be a Knicks town. I think Brooklyn has to win probably. They honestly have to win multiple championships, probably 2 or 3, and they have to have a run of success over the course of probably, like, let's face it, it's probably going to have to be over the course of at least 5 years, if not a decade, for them to kind of influence the next generation coming up. Because right now, I mean, you have Nick Lifers that it doesn't matter what's happening, you're never going to change. Like Spike Lee could be as disrespected as he felt from Jim Dolan or James Dolan, whatever. And he swore that he was going to go back to games and certain things. You ask him now, he's still like, and he's from Brooklyn. He's from Brooklyn. His office is still in Brooklyn. And he's still like, nah, man, I can't root for the Nets. I got to be a Knicks guy, which sounds insane. That's how deep those roots are embedded in New York Knicks culture. So even the Brooklyn Nets are cool. It's like the Knicks.
I just have to make sure I'm not insane.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like LA, right? Like even LA is still going to be Lakers town, no matter how good the Clippers are doing. It's still a Lakers town. It's still a Dodgers town. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things.
I think with the Knicks, what's amazing is that they have looked like they have it together, not just on the court, but as an organization.
Yeah.
They hired a real coach. Leon Rose is the GM, and he seems to have them moving in the right direction.
Yep.
You saw signs of this last year with, what's his name, Perry and the other guy. Even when things were in the dumpster, those two guys seemed like, okay, this is not going well. Let's just not make this worse. And the disappointment with the Knicks last year was that they didn't have to suck, but they did. They chose to. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, why? Why are you choosing to? Whereas this year they said, we are choosing not to suck. We're not going to throw all our money away. We're going to realize that we can't attract free agents and we have to develop as an organization. And I think they've shown that. And given that they're the Knicks, and I'm going to parrot or piggyback what was said by some of the other podcasts I've listened to, is it won't take long for the Knicks to become a free agent destination if they show they're just competent.
Yeah.
As long as they are not a dumpster fire, they're going to get there. Brian Windhorst in his podcast, he says, by the end of the year, some star is going to request a trade to the Knicks. And I thought, whoa, that's a big deal.
Well, I think it's the thing about stability, right? It's once you have a you have a stable family, you know what I mean? It looks good to other people, right? Like it is what it is. Like, because to touch on your point, like even they got Tibbs on the bench, and not to say that that David Fizdale isn't a good coach, but I mean he didn't get a chance, whereas Tibbs is actually getting a chance. So when you can give a good head coach, whether young or old, a chance to like be be something. Especially in New York, you give them a good sound base, a good front office, he might be pretty good. Like so,
and that's what Fizdale didn't have. He didn't have a good front office, and he had a horribly built roster.
Yep.
At least with the Knicks now, when you look at them, they have positional depth. They have players that can put the ball in the hole.
They have youth.
They seem cohesive, right? They're not looking to bang in that big star, it doesn't feel like the Knicks of old where they're like, yeah, and then this summer we're going to get these big free agents. I think they realized that that's changed, and now they have to actually build a program as opposed to being, we're just the Knicks. Remember the Lakers a few years ago when there was all these big free agents and LaMarcus Aldridge went in and they're like, yeah, we want you here. Come to L.A. And he was like, their free agent pitch was like the worst. And I think the Lakers realized, like, hey, we got to get our act together. And they did. And I think the Knicks are in that boat where they're going, we got to get it together or we're going to suck.
Or we're always going to suck.
Yeah.
I think the wake-up call for them last year when they didn't even get an interview with, like, KD and Kyrie. Guys who wanted to come to New York and they had literally no interest in even taking a phone call from the Knicks. That's the wake-up call where you're like, yo, we're actually not even, like, we can't even get you on the phone. Like, we're really not relevant right now. Like, yo, that's ridiculous. You know,
but you're seeing the template, right? Look at what Toronto did and the Nets. They built a team that was ready to take on a superstar. They weren't trying to, be anything more than what they were. Solid players, well-run organization, good team. If we're going to talk Toronto, Masai took a shot and he got Kawhi, and it worked because he had all the other pieces there.
Yep.
Now look at the Nets. The Nets built that team with Kenny Atkinson. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was a different generation. Kenny Anderson, Derek Coleman. Love those guys.
Love Kenny Anderson. Jeez.
But Kenny Atkinson developed players. They built a good culture. They were fun to watch. They played together.
Yep.
And they continued to get better. And that's what you're looking for. These big stars aren't just looking for money. They're looking for, are you a good organization?
Yep.
Are you well run? I mean, look at the problem. Look at the Bulls. The Bulls have been a dumpster fire for a decade. And it seems like Arturas Karnisovas and Billy Donovan are kind of pulling them out of the dumpster.
Yeah, slowly but surely. And but you can see, you look at the Knicks, and that's the thing. Like they got young players that are developing nicely. Like they finally did it the way that they should have been doing it years ago. Just build it from the ground up. You start over and don't worry about trying to just like go for the home run hit and try to get these free agents to come there. You know what I mean? Without anything showing some sort of stability. As you're right, like at this stage, like even in the big market, it doesn't matter anymore because of again, I always say this, because of social media and where we are in this era right now, it has shrunk the world down. Where back in the 80s and 90s and the 2000s or what have you, being in a big market was a huge pull. Because that meant the marketing dollars, the endorsements, all that stuff, business. But like nowadays, that doesn't that doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? Like
it's easier to be global now.
Yeah, to use the example, you had two of the biggest stars in the NBA playing on Oklahoma City. That's not even bigger than Brampton, right? Like but that's the truth, right? Like like it is what it is. So. It's crazy. Like that's where we are with the league right now, where it's the big market thing isn't the same. So it's like if you're good and you're in a big market, now it's a bigger pull. If you're stable and you're in a big market, now it's a bigger pull. So that's why a Miami team is always going to get free agents, because their front office is sound, regardless of their culture. It is always sound. So Brooklyn is cool because Brooklyn has been building for the last few years. Like the only thing that honestly with Toronto, it's like Toronto's the same thing. Toronto's got a great culture. Now you can say a championship culture, even though we still have problems pulling in free agents ourselves. But that's not due because of the team. You know what I mean? That's not due to the team. That's just the mentality of players. But that's not due to because of Toronto, the city. Like everybody knows, Toronto as a city is a world-class city.
Well, I think what teams are trying to see is they're trying to become is. You're looking at a team, you're a player. What kind of team do you want to go to? Do you want to go to a team that's going to develop you and you're going to have a chance to be in the league and be a better player? Or are you just going to go to Minnesota? Right? How many first-round picks, number one picks has Minnesota got? They're still terrible. But look at the teams we're talking about. We're talking about Toronto. We're talking about we haven't talked about Golden State, but they've done a great job developing their players. You're talking about the Nets. We're talking about Chicago now committing to developing all these dozens of draft picks that they've wasted over the years. You have to develop from within. It's player development. And I think Tyler Hero was a player who specifically was like, I want to go to Miami. Duncan Robinson, he even said it in his own podcast. One of the reasons he picked Miami was how they developed players. Yeah. Because he was undrafted. He had lots of options. And he chose that one because he thought, this is a good place to develop as a player. So that's a big deal as your organization. Now, if you're not thinking about that, you're going to be out in the cold real quick.
No, absolutely. And I guess to answer my question, I don't know if it's sustainable per se, but I still like right now they're fifth in the East. I see them tumbling back a little bit. But with that said, I definitely see them playing in the play-in tournament, and depending on who's in that tournament with them and on the Eastern side, I can see them landing that 8th spot. Like they've been a solid team all year. Like again, like Obi Toppin is a lottery pick, but Emmanuel Quickly is their best rookie, right? So far, right. Like he's been super solid. Like they might have finally got an answer at point guard, but again, he's developing along very nicely. Obviously, we haven't even gone to Julius Randle, how he's been unlocked by teams. Yeah. The guy's averaging 23, 11, and 5.5 assists today. A night.
Yeah, Tibbs though he's running out 8 guys. You're going to get run, right? So you're going to put up shots. You're going to get lots of run. You're going to get comfortable. That's not to take away from what he's doing.
No, because his efficiency is really good as well. Like it's not just a guy jacking up shots and just trying to hoard numbers. Yeah, like he's doing this.
Yeah, you didn't.
Efficiently.
Nobody thought he would be this, right?
Yeah,
he's blown away the expectations.
But he's been many props to him because he's been very sufficient this year. Automatically, like again, like the guy's averaging 48 from the field, 41 from 3, and 80 from the free throw line. Like you can't knock his numbers. And then
no.
And then the progression of RJ Barrett himself as well. He's been like their second best player. And
well, here's the thing: it's not just the numbers. The numbers are translating to wins.
That's it.
It's nice to have numbers. I mean, tons of guys have numbers, but if they don't turn into victories, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. But
sorry,
go ahead.
I'm looking at the standings here, and you talked about is this sustainable for the Knicks? So there are 3.5 games that separate 5th and 12th in the East. Mm-hmm. So nobody knows. Like, put it this way: the Orlando Magic are not that far out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, which is crazy. Well, at least with a play-in, because you got to get to 10th spot, right, to play in that play-in game.
Right.
So I mean, looking at that, and that's why I mean, like, just looking at the standings, they're going to take a bit of a tumble once guys get healthy because the Heat are coming, they're healthy, they're coming. Charlotte's been having a lot of success this year, which is kind of like shocking some people, especially.
How about LaMelo Ball?
Yeah, he's been playing really well. Obviously, rookie of the year by far at this point. And before COVID basically ravaged our home team, the Raptors were basically looking really good. Like they look like they finally found their footing as well. So I see like at least Miami and the Raptors at least catching the Knicks at some point. So go ahead.
Like think about the Pacers. They're going to get Karis LeVert back at some point.
Is he coming back this season?
I think so.
Okay. Him and TJ Warren too, because TJ Warren is basically missing most of the season as well.
They're a good organization. I mean, with the Raptors, you had to think, even at 2-8, knowing how they play, knowing that they play hard, knowing that they win the games they're supposed to win, you knew they were going to turn it around.
Right.
Eventually, right? And then you just saw, maybe they don't have that one guy who's going to blow the doors off you, but they play hard, they play sound, they're going to beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And then every now and again, they're going to beat some teams they're not supposed to beat. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah. And I guess the next question will be Phoenix. Is the Suns' success sustainable?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes right now. However, did any of us think they were going to be here?
Second in the West? No. Not right now.
No. Right?
But I thought playoffs.
Nobody thought that.
Yeah.
I think it's sustainable if they can continue to gel together and they can get something out of DeAndre Ayton that's a little bit more than turnaround fadeaways in the post. I mean, I'm not a big Chris Paul fan, or I should say I wasn't a big Chris Paul fan. I knew how good he was. However, what he did in Oklahoma City last year just put him on another level for me.
Yeah.
Because he took a mishmash group and was an incredible leader, and they were great down the stretch. He nurtured those young guys. He gave them confidence. That's why I think, you're looking at him going into a situation with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. And a sleeper guy that I really like was Mikhail Bridges. I've always kind of liked him and watched him grow. And it's one of those scenarios where you never know with a guy you're like, I think he's going to be something. The tools are there. He's developing. But he just took a leap at the end of last year and coming into this year where you're just like, okay, now they have those pieces in their lineup. They got a little bit of depth. I think it's sustainable. I'm going to say the question to you. Are we talking playoff sustainable, or are we talking regular season sustainable?
For them, it's more regular season. I think they set themselves up to be like a good playoff contender, or at least a playoff contender, meaning like they will make the playoffs. They may give a team a good fight in the first round, possibly make the second round, depending on where they fall. If they get like a home court advantage, which they very well may, because I see them falling back a little bit as well. But watching them play, I can see them falling into like the fourth spot, maybe even the fifth at worst. But I do think it's sustainable, again, health and outbreaks permitting. But I agree with you. Chris Paul is a Hall of Fame talent. I think his legacy is going to be that person that makes mediocre teams good to very good. And then possibly great, like a Houston situation. But like every team that he's been on, they were mediocre. He got to the Hornets. They ended up being a good / really good team before they started blowing that up. And then he went to the Clippers. The Clippers were a hyped up team. They went from mediocre to good to really good, right? The Houston was a team that he went on. They were good, but he made them potentially great, if not for his hamstring injury in 2018 and then their implosion in 2019. We'll ignore that. But but at least he made them good. Especially during the regular season, right? And then, in OKC last year, same thing. They were expecting to not make the playoffs. He was expected to be traded, before the deadline of last year, and they ended up, not only making the bubble, they were a fifth seed in the West, right? So, and he's having that same effect now because, look, I mean, with somebody like Devin Booker, I mean.
Trevor Booker,
Devin Booker, but like you look at his situation too, right? Because right now the rumors are that player that you're talking about maybe landing in New York. The rumor is that him and the Knicks kind of have eyes for each other, but that's more on the front office than it is on Chris Paul because Chris Paul also has that antagonizing personality. Like he's not the easiest guy to play with at times. And history kind of plays that out, but
history does play that out. I'll agree. However, the job what he did with that OKC team,
I don't think that comes from OKC's position. I don't think that comes from
that. No. I think everybody has to be compatible. Superstars always have problems with superstars.
Yeah,
it's never a smooth road. We just see it more now. I'm never going to get upset and think he's the problem only. There's two sides to that. Like, how many of those guys at the Clippers do you classify as winners? Right?
Yeah.
When he was with the Clippers and the Pels, how many of those guys you go, oh man, that guy's a dog. That guy's an all-timer.
Right.
None of them. With the Rockets, and maybe we'll see this change now that he's with the Nets. But in my personal opinion, I don't think you can have your best player in James Harden be someone who is basically like an NFL quarterback who only plays offense and not even try on defense. But you got to try.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
that's kind of
your teammates don't respect you.
But I think that's kind of changing for him too, though, as well, right? At least
we'll
the way he's been playing so
see.
far. Yeah, so far. The way he's been playing so far. We'll have to see. But the thing was, like, going back to Booker for a second, Trevor's cousin Devin. But, like, the situation with him is I thought Phoenix for the last couple of years put him in a bad spot because they kind of made him play that Harden role. He's a hell of a talent. He's very skilled, probably top 5 to top 10 skilled players in the league. But turning him to Harden wasn't great for his game. Like, he's a scorer. He hunts. He's not somebody that's going to share. Like, that's not natural for him. You know what I mean? So,
although he's a really good passer.
He can pass. Like, he got better at it. But I'm saying, like, to put him at the point guard to make him facilitated offense, I think that was a mistake. And then you have somebody like Ayton who needs the ball, and he's not getting the ball. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, having CP3 kind of run that for him takes that pressure off. So it's amazing for them. Like, they're a good team, they're a playoff contender. So I think this can be sustainable, but I don't see them going obviously past the max is the second round at most.
You could say up until probably last year that the Suns were like the Knicks of the Western Conference. They were that poorly run.
Right.
You know, they had a bully of an owner in Robert Sarver, terrible front office execution. Up until, last year, there was really nothing to report with the Suns other than they were knob shines, really.
Right.
As much as you could like Devin Booker, they weren't winning games. So, I
mean, their only success really was the fact that they went 8-0 in the bubble, right? Like, that was probably like the hint of, like, maybe they're finally starting to turn the corner because Monty Williams was their coach. Everybody was kind of healthy. It seemed like there was improvements there from that 4-month break. And that maybe the corner's starting to finally turn. You know what I mean? So the fact that they got CP3 to kind of add to that now, it's like maybe we shouldn't be totally surprised by this, but we still should because they're second in the West. Nobody saw that coming, right? Nobody that wasn't even on the thought process of that even being a possibility. So we should all be surprised by that. But with that said, I think it's sustainable that they can be a playoff contender, and I think they're gonna at this stage they're probably gonna stay fighting for that last home court advantage spot in the first round, like that 4th spot. Yeah. They're gonna be in contention for that for most of the season. I know you were talking about Luka earlier in terms of teams wanting to match up with them or what have you, but I want to focus on another Mav for a second, which is Kristaps Porzingis. Mm-hmm. I gave up on Porzingis about a year ago. Are you with me, or do I have to convince you that we should escape this Porzingis town right now?
I'm selling. I'm selling hard on Kristaps Porzingis, right away. I mean, you're paying him that much money. Could you get anything for him? No. Do you want to? You're just kind of stuck in the moment with him, and hoping that he can 1, stay healthy, and 2, be productive. But Dallas has started the year very much like the Raptors, terrible, and have now come on, and now they're the 8th spot in the West. Mm-hmm. But that's just because Luka decided to get it together. Right? He didn't play well the early part of the season. They had struggles. One of the things I noticed watching them, and Dallas was a team I did get to watch a bunch of earlier in the year, was that Tim Hardaway Jr. was playing way too much. Right? He was really trying to be that third guy instead of trying to be who he was, and you could see in the body language from Luka that was a problem. He was taking shots. He was taking 25-footers on one pass, and you could just see Luka be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Trey Burke's out there trying to be a creator. Do you remember the game where they ran a bunch of? It was a 1-point game. They were just scrambling around, and Luka didn't touch the ball for the last 10 seconds of the clock.
Who were they playing again? I'm trying to remember that.
I forget who they were playing, but they had 2 games that same week. I think it might have been the Bulls. They had 2 games that same week that ended similarly. One where Porzingis literally didn't even see him or looked him off. And I'm just going, what is going on over there? There's something wrong with their team. To me, there's just something wrong.
Porzingis, like, to me, I want him to, more than anything, play like he's at least 7'3". And I'm not gonna go on this rant where, you know, we're gonna say the back of the day I want my big men to, but dude, like, at least some of the time, can you play like you're 7'3"? Like, I understand where the game is going. You're a good shooter from outside. You know what I mean? You can make shots. Nobody's gonna block your shot. But can we at least use some of your height? Like, it's funny because I remember watching Inside the NBA, and I remember Kenny Smith, and they made a great point about him, and they were talking about there's times where, like, he's cutting through the key, and he's got a guy that's like 6'6" on him. You know what I mean? But he's cutting through the key to try to get to, like, you know, the perimeter, you know, the corner three, you know, to get the ball on the wing.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if we just stop halfway through when you're running through the lane and just sit down for a second, get the ball and just shoot over the guy. Like, you're 7'3".
Yeah.
He's not blocking your
that's
shot. Like
that's a 9-inch height difference.
Like
9 inches.
Like, again, like, anytime you step on 17 feet and over, like, if you're 6'6", you're playing in my world now, right? Unless you have superior footwork at that size, you know, which is very few guys in NBA history can blow past you as a 7-footer, you know, as a wing player, you know, outside of like a Kevin Durant, right? But you can't count him. He's like a super freak in that sense. But with that said, like, you're playing in my world now. When you're trying to take me off the dribble, even if you're shooting your shot, I'd rather you shoot from 18 feet or 25 feet, as apparently he likes to do from time to time. But if you got me 6 feet from the basket, now I'm scared. Because I'm like, I can't grow 9 inches to block a shot, so I got to basically just take this basket, you know what I mean, or get the double team and help. So it's like certain situations, like, you got to just use your height. Like, yo, do you know how tall 7'3" is? Like, so I had a chance to meet Rick Smits, right, when I was probably back in high school. The reason being is because my brother, who we affectionately call Big Brother Curtis on this show, he comes on our podcast from time to time. Like, he used to play with him at Marist. So we had a chance when he was on the Pacers to go watch a game. And this is when, to tell you how far this was, this is when the Raptors were still at the Sky Dome, which is probably one of the worst places to watch a basketball game, right? One of the worst places to watch a basketball game. It's not even close. But, you know, we had a chance to meet him, whatever. At least I had a chance to meet him after the game. You're my height, so we're both 6'3". Basically, I reached the bottom of his sternum. Like, and he's 7'4". He's an inch taller than Porzingis. Like, you know, you hear people say, like, man, Luka needs help. They have a guy. They have a guy. His Porzingis. He's getting paid $150 million. They have a guy.
Yeah.
Like, they got to stop. And this is what we were talking about before. Excuse me. What we're talking about before, where it's like, sometimes it's like you win the genetics lottery. Can you at least, like, take some money out of that account and just use it the way it should be used? Like this, at a certain point, it's like, okay, let me just use my height. I have a 6-inch advantage on a person. Let me just use it for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If I cut through the key, let me dive in, get a quick basket. You know, let me get a couple of post moves. I might not be the biggest guy size-wise, but 7'3" is 7'3". You know, and it's like, how long can you play outside in the key, like outside on the wing for?
I think further to your point is more that he has the talent. It isn't just about the size. So he's got the talent and the ability.
100%.
It's just not coming through. And then when you add in
the injuries,
the price tag, the injuries, and then the potential, it just leaves you wanting more.
It drives you nuts. It essentially drives you nuts. That's basically what it is. So, like I said, I've basically given up on this. I think he's got Marcus Camby's injury history at this point, and you know, he's really talented, but like I don't think it's gonna come together. And because of the tax bracket that he's now living in, it's gonna be hard to, like, you have to basically either make a trade or commit to him being a second guy. And I don't know if he's worthy of being a second guy at this point, which is crazy to say because a couple of years ago you were like, yo, Giannis, you know, him, like, holy smokes, like Durant called him the unicorn. Because you're looking at the potential and you're like, man, like he's going to be something in New York, man. Put another star with him. Holy smokes. And now you're like, man, should he be the second best player on the team? Like, that's what we are now. He's averaging 20 a game, and that's like he shouldn't be averaging 20.
Yeah. I think if you're Dallas, you're not overly worried about it in the short term because you're going to have cap space. You have an owner who's willing to go into the luxury tax. You have some expiring contracts and you can make some moves with cap flexibility. You're okay. And Luke is young. But sooner or later, you got to start putting some pieces in that mix that start making a difference.
Yeah.
Bradley Beal's name has been thrown around. I actually thought for a second Kyle Lowry might be a good fit there. But he fits everywhere.
Yeah. No, he does.
So,
he does.
Dallas has its own problem. The Porzingis unicorn thing, I think we should just delete the whole unicorn.
Yeah, it's a take the horn off. It's a pony now. Like that's basically where we are. It's a pony now. Like it's fine. Like we recognize it. It doesn't ride as well as a unicorn. It doesn't fly through the air.
Yeah.
It doesn't have rainbows on its wings. It's fine. Like it's it comes from the horse family. Like let's leave it there.
Right.
You know?
I got it. That was good.
Oh, thank you. What are your thoughts on Blake Griffin joining the Brooklyn Nets at this point?
The Nets need defense, and he doesn't provide that. I think he's a great piece for a contender, and I think this is probably the first time in a really long time, probably the truest time where you're saying we are going to outscore everyone to the championship, and it might work.
Might work.
You know,
that is the goal right now.
That's the weirdest part.
That is the goal right now. We're gonna go NBA Jam on you. That's it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, who's running it? Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a more appropriate coaching staff to have for that roster?
Yeah. Basically, how do we solve our defensive issues? More offense.
Yeah. The best defense is a really, 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 really good offense.
Right, exactly.
Because they are the team that I think if you're the Lakers, if you're the Clippers, if you're the Bucks, they are probably the only team where you're like, man, if we don't score almost every possession, we're going to get torched. Yeah. And it might happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you know what it's like. It's like you know when you mix your Minute Maid juice in a can, and it's like it's already kind of sweet. Maybe you should pour more water. They're like, no, the solution is put more sugar. Put more sugar in it. Let's get the diabetes right now. Like, why not?
Yeah. The one where your mom is like, I think that's enough. No, one more. Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. Like, I think it's a great move because, like, getting up, like, offensively, in terms of getting up big with a high IQ, you can kind of run the offense through him, especially in the high posts, which I think to me is important because if they can really embrace, you know, in terms of, you know, working off the ball and stuff, like, that's going to work great in a sense, having him being there because you can run cuts off him. He screens well, obviously. Like, just the basic skills and those type of things he's really great at. He's a great passer. So if you're cutting to the basket, he's going to find you. You know, like, I think for them, like, that's where he's going to be really great. His knees are almost shot at this point. He's got, like, the Stoudemire syndrome, unfortunately, where he's at right now in his career. But,
dude,
you know,
I read that he is the only player in the NBA 6'7" or taller this season that does not have a dunk.
Yeah, he doesn't have a dunk yet. I think he'll get one before the year's over. How about that?
Well, the bigger issue is the thing that made him so deadly, and the crazy thing to think about is he was All NBA third team 2 years ago.
I know.
And I'm with you. I think that one of his biggest underrated skills is as a passer and a playmaker. And if their ability to put him on the second unit as a center or a forward and to fill in as a starter, because guaranteed you're not going to want to play KD and Kyrie and James, although Harden is a workhorse, maybe less Kyrie and KD to give them rest. he can be a spot starter. Your big thing is is his shooting going to come back? Because his 3-point shooting has kind of gone away.
Yeah.
But could that not be a product of playing on a crappy team on Detroit where you're not really getting quality look?
Yeah, exactly. Where now, there's going to be times where, which is crazy to see, where he's going to be more open than he's ever been in his NBA career. And and the crazy thing is, if he's like, for his sake, you got to hope that you're open from 3 because you're not taking that cut and diving over somebody to dunk again, right? Like that last season you're talking about a couple years ago, we was 13 All-NBA. You can see his athleticism was already starting to slip. Remember, he had that big abrasive white knee sleeve brace on his left leg, like he had a RoboCop like knee brace, like at that point where you're like, man, this isn't looking good. He's
got an extensive injury history. Remember, he missed his rookie year.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing that's the thing that scares me too, because he was this generation's first Zion, right? And the fact that Zion already has a meniscus tear and he already had his knee injury, like I'm just watching him like, oh man, please be healthy for the rest of your career. Like I just, but it's just like, man, you get nervous because we just watched this with Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin was a super strong power forward, who had some skills to his game, was leaps and bounds over everybody, and as you said, like now he hasn't even had a dunk yet. He hasn't had a dunk since 2019. Which is like that to me is like it's completely mind-boggling. But in terms of offensively, he helped his team absolutely. It's just unfortunately it doesn't help them defensively, but. Because even in his prime, he wasn't great at that. Like he was a great rebounder or a good rebounder when he started, and that progressively got worse as the longer that he stayed in the league. Which is weird. Like his best rebounding season was probably his rookie year, which doesn't make sense, right? But like at this stage, it's like I'm with you. Like I think they're playing NBA Jam right now with everybody else, and it may work. That's a crazy thing there because the 3 best players are all in their prime, and they're like. They're like top 10 players.
They made the best decision with Harden and Kyrie saying you're the point guard, because I think going back to when it was OKC and you had Russ and Harden and KD, Harden was the playmaker. He was the one setting the table. Russ, as much as his numbers show a lot of assists, he gets those assists because he was able to basically get himself into the paint based on sheer athleticism.
Right.
Russ's game wasn't super crafty, and now you're seeing the wheels fall off that bus. Because again, how long ago was he MVP? Not that long ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
But now we're seeing with the Nets, Harden, that playmaking ability is just next level.
Yeah.
And they got shooters. Offensively, they have everything you're really going to want, because even if you say, oh, you can't, they don't have a post-up guy, even if you say Blake isn't a post-up guy, KD is just all-world at whatever you want to put him doing.
Right.
He's got that Dirk 15-foot, one-footer off the spin, whatever, cash, see you later. So offensively, they have everything you could want. The question is, when it comes down to brass tacks in those tight moments and you need a stop and it's a tight game, are you going to get it? Or are these other teams going to make you switch to the point that they expose Harden's defensive liability or Kyrie's defensive liability, and now those guys are in foul trouble throughout a whole series and you can't get your rhythm? That's to me is a strategy that I would put in play if I'm the Lakers and I make it to the finals and I'm playing the Nets. I'm putting LeBron and AD or whoever Harden's guarding. I'm hunting him.
Yeah,
and I'm putting him in foul trouble ASAP.
Absolutely. On that team, you have somebody that can expose that. But with what Brooklyn and LA are trying to do in terms of grabbing like the best available bigs on the market to kind of load up for this playoff run, like to you, like are they still the favorites in your eyes to meet up in the finals? Because to me,
yes.
because to me, I'm actively rooting for this super team stuff to stop. I really am. Bill, I was really hoping we were going to move away from this era. So when Harden got that, I was just like, oh God, this is at least another 3-4 more years of this, because somebody else is coming to try to offset this, especially if they win. Like somebody's coming to try to beat this, you know.
Yeah,
but
I'll be interested if Andre Drummond ends up with the Lakers, because I just think the Lakers are a little more versatile than the all offense of the Nets.
Yeah, they play great. They play good defense for sure.
The only reason I'm putting the Nets a little bit ahead of the Bucks right now is just that sheer firepower, and the opposite of that coin is just the Bucks struggle sometimes in the half court. So who's going to win there? Is the defense of the Bucks going to win? Because I think they can guard the Nets pretty well.
Yeah.
Or is the offense of the Nets going to win? I'm giving the Nets a little bit of the edge right now.
Yeah, but again, you have 3 players in the top 10 in the league. Like legitimately, you couldn't even say that about the Heat when they're running the East, for the first half of the 2010s. Like you couldn't even say that about them because Bosh was probably a top 15 player. Where in this case, like maybe Kyrie's the worst, and he's probably like, if you want to make a list, maybe 8th.
Well, come on. Okay. Here's my challenge to you. I want you to sit down and make your list. Not right now, but you got to make your list. I'm pretty sure you're not putting Kyrie at number 8. Right?
In terms of pure talent? Yeah.
So you're saying he's better than Luka, he's better than AD, he's better than Giannis, he's better than Steph, he's better than Dame.
No, I didn't say he's better than AD or Giannis or.
But what I'm saying is I do it too. I'm like, oh, he's the top 5, and then I think about it. I'm like, wait, I should actually make a top 5 list. And then I sat down one day and I made it, and the guy I was talking about, like, oh yeah, he's not even on my top 5. I should probably stop saying that.
I wouldn't say Kyrie. In terms of pure talent, he's not my top 5, but he's in the top. To me, he's in the top 10. Absolutely. In terms of pure skill, shit, he might be top 5. Pure skill, top 5, maybe, yeah. But
I'm putting Dame and Steph ahead of him.
You know what? I don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. But and I would definitely take Steph 100% too. But because of the stuff that Kyrie has done in the playoffs so far, especially winning a chip with LeBron, taking the most important shot in the Cavs history. Yeah, I would probably side with him when the playoffs come. Because at least he's been there. He knows what it's like. But
I agree.
Like I would say this. It's funny. You're talking about the Bucks, right? In terms of them giving the Nets the best kind of challenge. I kind of wonder if the team that's best to beat them is Philly, because of Embiid and the fact that they also play great defense, and especially if he can get guys in foul trouble. Like I know they're going to try to go small, but he's so talented and so big, you're going to have to deal with him. It's funny where they say, like, Shaq couldn't play in this era. But if Shaq was a young Shaq playing in this era, same game, same everything, even if he went small, he would be abusive. You know what I mean? Because he's just so big and so powerful. But
never mind. Remember Orlando Shaq and how athletic he was?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have bulked up. He would have been the stud that he was in Orlando. If you YouTube those highlights, it blows your mind.
And it's funny because you're saying he wouldn't have bulked up. This guy was over 300 pounds at that time. he was still a Sasquatch compared to everybody else.
Yeah, he was over 300 pounds in Orlando.
Right.
Never mind the Lakers.
Right, exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
I think you might be that's a really good point you make, because their versatility defensively, especially with Simmons, is very interesting. Simmons is an incredibly polarizing for some people as a talent, but I think he just does so many things that lead to wins. If he could just make free throws, I don't care about three-pointers.
Yeah.
If he could make free throws, then you could put him in ISO and get him downhill. And then if he's making 75% of his free throws, you can't just bury him in the dunker spot down the stretch. Now you're like, shit, I gotta stop this guy, and I can't just foul him because he's gonna make those.
Yeah.
You know?
And he's 67% from the line, just to speak to your point
Yeah.
this year.
He's getting better, right? He's still super young. What is he, like 24?
Yeah, but
is he even that?
He's like what? He's his 6th year. This is his 6th year in the league too. So some habits are starting to form. Although like hopefully he improves the free throws, but like some habits are starting to form now. He's in year 6. He is 24, but he's in year 6 or year 5. He's in year 5.
If Jason Kidd can be in the top 10 in all-time three-pointers made,
there's a chance for him.
This kid. If Mark Jackson, I don't know how much of this you remember, but Mark Jackson with the Knicks, when he started out, was a liability when it came to anywhere past 10 feet. You know?
He was
he developed, right? So
it took time. He improved though.
I think there's a chance. Is this the year? I don't know, but I think you're right. Philly, because they are so opposite of what Brooklyn is, might be the bigger threat. Yeah,
because offensively, even though I think Tobias Harris is their 3rd best player, offensively when you need a basket, he's probably their 2nd best player. And then
I like him.
He's good. I think he's the way he's playing in his role. Like he's been playing very well this year. And honestly, like really and truly, because I think if Philly's record was a little bit better and they didn't get, the bit of the outbreak that they had this year and certain things, like he probably could have snuck in the All-Star game. Like, some years where the top team will get like 3 players in the All-Star game. Like he could have snuck in and been that 3rd guy. It's just I don't think their record was as great. Like if they had Utah's record, they probably could have snuck him in. But with that said, like, I'm looking at the stats now. Like, you're looking at Embiid. Embiid's averaging 30 and 11 right now. 30 and almost 12 right now. Like, he is playing – to me, he's the MVP. Like, I don't know about you, but to me, I'm like – I know they're, earlier they're talking about, it's LeBron, it's this and stuff. And I'm like, I'm watching these Philly games, man. I'm like, I've never seen Embiid play better. And he was my dark horse coming into in terms of being an MVP. He was a dark horse coming into the season for me. You know what I mean? In terms of getting this award. And now he's like right now, I think he's playing as good as I've ever seen him play.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to be that.
This is totally sustainable too.
I'm going to be the jackass who talks about the MVP race and doesn't really care about it because how many years did the guy who should have won didn't win, and how often does it deteriorate into a politicized lobbying campaign? Right. For winning the MVP, right? And getting your Supermax or whatever. So I don't want to disagree with you. I think there's a lot of data there saying that he is definitely in that MVP conversation, if not at the head of it.
Yeah.
However, what I do want to say is, where are you on the Sixers if they get Kyle Lowry? I know this hurts your heart a little bit to think that.
No, it's realistic because I don't think Lowry's staying. I mean, look, evidence number one, he's a free agent. He's 35 years old. He just sold his house in Toronto. We pretty much know where this is going. Like, he's probably, unless he decides to take a pay cut, he's probably leaving Toronto. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Thank you for your service. You were amazing. You were amazing. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably the Raptors' most important player because you had the tenure and you won a ring. All that's great. If you want to go back home, it's like, listen, it's all good. It's all good. Like, the Raptors are in a good place, you know what I mean, in terms of culture. You know, Fred VanVleet's ready to take that role over at this point now. Yeah. Like, we're good. But if to answer your question, if he goes to Philly, I think if he goes to Philly and they don't have to give up, like, Harris or like, one, like, at that point, man, I don't know, man. Like, because like, that is a really, now, man, like they actually really have a good shot to beat Brooklyn at that point. Because I think even with Milwaukee, and I think Milwaukee, to me, is going to be a team that's going to, I think Milwaukee's going to be a team, honestly, Bill, that's going to basically take a leap forward, like in the second half of the year, because really and truly they haven't been totally healthy. Look, Drew Holiday's missed a good chunk of the season. He's now coming back from the COVID situation like that he's had, and he's basically being implemented slowly back on the team. He's coming off the bench. At some point they're going to, I'm waiting for them to eventually gel. You know what I mean? And when they do, especially defensively, because defensively, Drew Holiday is a stud. At that point guard position. So when they gel defensively, they are going to be a problem. I expect them to start really building back up to the top of the ladder of the conference. But if they get Kyle Lowry, man, I think they might. In terms of on paper, I think I would put them neck and neck with Brooklyn, which sounds crazy to say, but the thing is, they have a balance of good offense, solid decision making, solid coaching. You could say now, because Doc Rivers is coming from a position where he's coaching with a chip on his shoulder, as well as Embiid coming into the season too, because he was getting his name dirtied up a little bit. And then defensively, they play well. Even if you throw Lowry in there, it's going to keep the defense isn't going to drop. That energy level is going to be the same. It might even be a little higher. So,
I think he creates even more defensive versatility for them, because you can't post him up.
No.
And maybe he can't guard the super quick guards anymore, but as a guy who understands defense, and in the playoffs, everything slows down.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be running these track meets. He's a bulldog.
Yeah.
He loves pressure. It doesn't faze him. I think something like that could galvanize Embiid and Harris and Simmons. And then they have shooting, and he can shoot. And so I think that's a super interesting move if it happens. And if I'm the Bucks and the Nets, I'm a little less certain of my path now, because Philly just got that thing that they don't have, which is that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I think Rivers and Lowry are meant to be together in terms of yelling at referees and racking up G's. They are like a match made in heaven, man. Oh my God. But
did you ever hear that? Did you ever listen to that? This is a total sidetrack. You ever listen to Jimmy Kimmel's NBA meme tweets?
Yeah, I've seen that from time to time, yeah.
And there's one where Doc Rivers is sitting there, and he's like, Doc Rivers' voice is super ashy. Put some lotion on those vocal cords, bro. And then when I think of Doc Rivers, I always think of that Jimmy Kimmel thing, and I'm like, amazing.
Joel! You gotta get down low, Joel. Yeah, I know. He always sounds like he has laryngitis now at this point.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody would have picked the Sixers to be atop the East either.
Yeah,
we got a lot of stuff that is definitely not what you expected. Celtics are in fourth. I think a lot of people would have thought that the Celtics would be higher up, but then I've watched a few of their games, and they got some holes. When they do pull it out, Jason Tatum comes through with a monster effort. He's a stud. I think
amazing.
Everybody would have thought Miami would be higher up. Now, Jimmy missed 3 weeks of the season, and they've had a ton of people out.
Yeah.
Tyler Hero in and out of the lineup. Bam has looked really good, and they've got some nice pieces there, but tough with the continuity not being there. So the Sixers being at the top of the ladder is another surprise for sure for me.
So it's funny. I think if you're saying Brooklyn and LA, the Lakers being the favorites, I mean, on paper, I would say yes for now. I'm kind of rooting for the Clippers versus Philly, because I think it makes for a great storyline, a great matchup on the court, but it makes for a great storyline. Rivers versus the Clippers, and then there's big markets. I don't think you lose either way as well.
And then you have the drama of Seth Curry against Paul George again.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I'm always amazed, and I don't know if everybody knows the story behind this, But I'm amazed that people are like, oh, Paul George and Doc Rivers didn't get along. I'm like, do you know what's behind that? Would you want to get along with him?
And
if you were around some guy who cheated on your daughter, like, yeah, I want to hang out with that guy.
And look, to make it worse, I can't believe Paul George still stepped out of his lane and was talking about the decision making of Rivers. After all that said, I'm like, yo, if Doc Rivers can go back in time and be like 30 years old, he is definitely punching Paul George in his face.
Oh, that at least punching him in his face. Like Doc Rivers was.
Oh, he was a G. He was a G. Like that was like he was definitely throwing hands on him. He was definitely throwing hands. 100%.
I'm just seeing Paul in my mind's eye right now. I'm seeing 30-year-old Paul George turtling with 30-year-old Doc Rivers, just laying hands on him. And you're like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, the storylines, on and off the court is amazing. I'm honestly I'm rooting for those two to play against each other, but I do see some sense of Brooklyn. I think like again that NBA Jam, super button that they're gonna press.
Yeah.
They got that press X ability right now under control pad. Like I don't.
There's still too many questions right now for me to say, anybody's a favorite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Lakers are the favorite if AD stays healthy.
Exactly.
Or if they get Andre Drummond in the buyout market, those things happen.
Yeah.
Sure, they're the favorite.
And when they're healthy, they're tough. But again, that Achilles injury is. You should be a little nervous about that.
Yeah,
this isn't the healthiest guy. And it's funny because that's why he took that contract too, right? The max, the 190. He took that 190 this offseason because he said, he's like, his injury history, he's like, you know what? Let me just take the sure thing right now. Because he could have waited another year and maybe get like 200 and something million, but he's like, let me just take this 190 right now because I can't guarantee, like he's basically kind of said in a roundabout way, I can't guarantee my health.
Yeah.
I think you should be a little nervous. And that's why I'm like, the Lakers to me aren't a shoo-in. You know what I mean?
Nobody is. Nobody is. To me, nobody is. The wheels could totally fall off the bus with the Nets. I still think that's a high probability.
Yeah.
How are you when the game gets tight? And I'm terrible for saying this. Do we really think those three guys are symbiotic when the game gets tight and Kyrie's going to keep it together and James is going to keep it together and KD's not going to say nothing? Where do you go when it's like there's one shot to be taken?
Yeah.
Now you got a different kind of problem.
All of them.
Who's the big dog?
Yeah. And well, it should be KD. In those situations, it should be KD. But yeah, I mean, those situations, like if Kyrie gets the ball, like at the same time too, based on his history and the stuff that he does, are you mad if he takes the last shot in a pivotal playoff game? Not really.
No,
depending on the shot he takes, right?
But based on his history, I am mad if James Harden thinks he's going to go at it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're looking at Miami. Miami, the first year, Dwayne Wade still was the guy, and LeBron was the one deferring to him when everybody knew that it should be LeBron's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they even talked about it. D-Wade even talked about it. He's like, that summer I was like, hey, I need to get out of the way. I need to be number 2 because you're the best player on the fucking planet. So could that happen in Brooklyn? Yeah, it could.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're guaranteed anything either.
It's true. And I think even with the Clippers, like there's a move that they have to make before the deadline to get a point guard. Like they got
a lot of problems in the clutch.
Yeah, because they don't have an asset to trade unless they're gonna get rid of like Reggie Jackson or Lou Williams. Like to me, like should they like bite the bullet and go after a Rondo? Should they go after like a George Hill? Like should they take a chance on Josh Hart and make a quick trade for him to see? Just because I'm like,
well, from what I've heard, Josh Hart isn't available.
Yeah, he's
and George Hill is a potential buyout candidate.
Yeah.
And there will be competition for him.
Yeah, he's going to, like, the Clippers are going to get somebody, but they need, but the thing is, the point guards that are going to be available, like, I don't know, man. Like, do you, like, again, like, did Rondo basically shoot his wad last summer or last year in the bubble? like, that's basically where you're going. Like, was that his last hurrah? Like, we don't know, right? Like, do you take the chance and you find out he's like, that was it? Like, it's like the Honda Civic that you drove past 300,000 kilometers where you're like, yeah, it's over. Bring it to the mechanic? No.
We're just leaving it in the parking lot here.
Take the plates off. Take the plates off, Bill. Take the plates off. You know, like, are we there? Are we at that point now? I don't know. You know what I mean? So, but it's like they need somebody to, even for like 20 minutes a game, to run their offense where it's like it's not going through Paul George or Kawhi. You know, in terms of running the offense, like they need like at least maybe 15 minutes even.
I read something that left me really confused about what the Clippers were doing, was that they could have got Ricky Rubio, and they didn't even bother trying.
I thought about him, too. I'm like, 15, 20 minutes, can Rubio do it? You know what I mean? Because he does play decent defense. He can't run an offense.
He can run your squad.
He can run your squad. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, 15, 20 minutes, do you just go after him in the trade? But then, again, based on the salary, you have to actually make a trade unless they're going to buy him out. You know, the
problem is you got so much dead money on that roster that's not filling out that you can't move. You can't trade Pat Beverly.
Yeah.
Ricky Rubio, I think to me, Rubio can give you 25 to 30 minutes easy.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, you know, you're in trouble, but what do you need? What do you need from the rest of the guys?
Yeah.
You're lacking what he could deliver. He's a legit 6'4", holds his own defensively. Has improved as a shooter.
Even if he comes off the bench, you just want somebody to be able to run the offense for like 15, 20 minutes, maybe even wrap up some games. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you want. Like, you know, these guys aren't going to take the last shot, but can they make the open shot if it's given to them in Game 5 of a pivotal playoff game? Like, who are those guys going to be? Like, who are those guys that's available? That's why I'm like a George Hill. Could George Hill do that? Is it Rubio? Like, there's not a lot of guys that's on the like in that position where they're going to be available, you know, at the deadline. Like, there's not a ton of guys out there, especially with
the buyout market. It's the buyout market that you're on because the Clippers don't have anything to trade.
No, they don't. They don't. They don't have no picks, anything. Like, it's going to be interesting. So basically, just I guess to wrap up, we'll try to do this really quickly, and we're kind of going to do this on the fly. But we're going to pick our All-NBA teams for the first half of the season.
Okay.
So I know you said you got your little list together, you know, or what have you. So who's your third team All-NBA team right now? Two forwards, two guards, and a center. Doesn't have to be a point guard, small forward. Two guards, two forwards, a center.
My center's going to be Gobert for sure.
All right.
Steph Curry's probably on there.
Third team?
I just kind of have 15 guys. I don't have 3. You go first, okay? Let me write down here what I'm doing. And now you're making me think.
Okay.
I thought we were just that's not spitballing. You're organized. Spitballing is just like, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna go with Gobert. Thinking about it now because I know who my first team is and I kind of know who my second team is, I guess, in my head.
Okay, where do you have Beal? Do you not have Beal?
I know I do have Beal. I have Beal, absolutely. But right now in my head, I have him on my second team. Let me just flesh this out. Let me flesh this out first, and then we can figure this out together. So Gobert's my center, third team center for sure. I think Paul George is one of my third team forwards for the first half of the season so far. The other forward, unless I'm forgetting somebody here, I'm gonna go with Jaylen Brown because I think he's been fantastic this season. I think he's even been more consistent than Jason Tatum. And then my guards, I would say for now, I would go with Booker and I would go with Donovan Mitchell. So Gobert, Mitchell, Booker, Jaylen Brown, Paul George. Yes.
Okay.
Right. That's my third team so far.
Okay. I'm working my way backwards here. I'm trying to figure all this out.
Okay, okay, sorry. You know what?
No. We're going to do this. I'm going to do it quick. So you had Booker there and Jaylen Brown. So does that mean you have Jason Tatum ahead of him on the second team, or do you have Jason Tatum nowhere?
In terms of the first half of the season so far, I don't have Jason Tatum on any of these teams right now.
Oh, really?
Well, I think a lot of it is, just availability, right?
So are you doing body of work, or you're doing where they are right now in terms of how they're playing?
Specific to this season only. Like, just in terms of...
No, but I mean body of work for the season.
Yeah, body of work, team success. I'm looking at those aspects as well.
Because every time I see Tatum play, I'm like, man, he is the engine that makes him go.
Oh, he's talent-wise, he's their best. Talent-wise, he's their best player. In terms of this season, right at this point right now, I would say it's Jaylen Brown. For this moment right now. We still have another half of the season to go. That may change. It probably will change. Because, especially when Tatum gets his legs, and all that stuff, because he's had COVID and everything. So, but with that said, like right now, I would more say Jaylen Brown right now. For me personally, at this juncture of the season right now.
That's interesting. Okay, so I've got Gobert. I'm going to put Jason Tatum on that team as opposed to Jaylen Brown, because just having watched them play.
Your list, bro. It's your list. It's fine.
Jason Tatum he's the best player on that team.
Okay.
So I can't really get away from that.
Okay.
Booker I can't be angry with, but at the same time, Kyrie's shooting. At one point, he was 40, 50, 90.
I know. It's just, yeah, I know. I know. I know.
So I'm putting Beal and Kyrie.
Okay, that's fine.
On my second team.
Second team or third team?
Third team. Sorry.
Okay.
Who's my third?
So you got Gobert, you got Tatum, Beal, and Kyrie,
and Kawhi.
And Kawhi's your third. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Kawhi's my third.
So you want me to say my second team, and then you could work off that. You could take.
Oh yeah, I'll do my second team, and I'm doing who I want to put there and who I think ends up there at the end of the year.
Okay, that's
so I've got.
Okay, go ahead.
I've got AD, Giannis, Jokic, Steph, and Dame.
Okay. I got Joker right now at this part of the season. Again, I just said Embiid earlier is my MVP now, so obviously he's on that first team to give away that answer, which I don't think is really a secret. But if not for Embiid's season, he would be number one right now. Like he's actually been like leaps and bounds better than last year, which is kind of crazy. Like,
yeah, Jokic is like he's my second rated man crush right now.
He's amazing. He's been I can't believe the scoring outputs he's had this year. It's actually like kind of really shocked me. Sometimes I'm looking at the stat sheet, I'm like, he had 40 again? What is this a typo? Like
his crunch time numbers are bananas.
Yeah, he's insane. He's insane. I love how he just plays like nothing shakes him off his path, man. Like he's playing at his own speed. You're not going to speed him up. He's just playing the way he's going to play, and that is it. You're playing to his energy, not the other way around. I saw
a highlight of a couple of years ago because it was him playing and Jay Crowder was on Utah.
Yeah.
So Jokic goes to the hoop, gets fouled, and he's kind of walking past the hoop, and after the whistle, and Crowder elbows him. Mm-hmm. Like, just a little elbow, whatever, like totally blatant. And he like literally suns him. He turns, and I don't think Jay Crowder really realized how big he was. Mm-hmm. Like as a human, just he's a big chunk of human.
Yeah.
And he like looked down at Jay Crowder and pushed him with his chest. Just pushed him around like little kids do on the playground. And Jay Crowder, I think, was like, he was laughing but scared at the same time because he's like, oh, shit, I'm screwed up here. And I thought it was hilarious. I was like, "Oh, Jay Crowder, not a good move, buddy." But yeah, Jokic is. You could easily swap him and Embiid because who knows how the half of the season goes, and Jokic is just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I would say Giannis is on the second team right now. Yeah, Kawhi's on my second team. I would say Beal, and I would say Lillard is on my second team as well.
Yeah, AD is my legacy pick there.
AD, yeah. AD for me.
Just based on AD.
Okay, sure, which is fine. AD to me I think he's been slightly disappointing this year. Where I was expecting him to go, where I'm like, yo, this guy may possibly be an MVP coming into the season, right, even though he's playing with LeBron, because, everybody who talked about LeBron being, he should have won MVP last year, but obviously he's the engine that drives that car, but AD led the team in basically almost all the categories except for assist and I think one other category. He basically led the team in everything else. Scoring, rebounding, I think assist and something else he didn't lead. But everything else, it was AD's name all over that, So I'm thinking, okay, going to the season and you win a championship, he's going to make that lead where you're just like, oh my God, this guy might be the best player in basketball. And it's I think he took a step back, a little bit of a step back. He could be coasting because they had a 71-day break between the finals and the start of the regular season. So he's
got an injury history.
Yeah, and then he got injuries, right? So there's that too. So, but either way, I don't have him on my list in the All NBA right now. I just
right.
He's an All-Star, but it's yeah, I don't have him on my NBA team right now.
I'm interested to know if our first team is identical.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I don't think it's gonna be though. But you're the guest, so who's your first team?
I think we only have one player that's probably going to be different.
Okay.
So I have LeBron, KD, Embiid, Luka, and Harden.
Okay, yeah, we have it different. You know what? You're right though. You're right that we have one player difference. I don't have Luka on my right now, and he may finish on the third or second team. I don't have him on my All NBA team right now. I would say it's even though he's averaging 28 and what have you. I would say it's Steph. Excuse me.
You put Steph on your first team.
I put Steph on the first team right now. Yeah.
So then you don't have Kyrie.
I don't have Kyrie in my All NBA right now, which might.
Where's Harden on your team?
Sorry.
Where's Harden on your squad?
Oh, first. He's first. The only difference on our first team is I swap out Luka, put in Steph. Everything else is the same.
Oh, Booker was the name that you put in.
Yeah, I put Booker.
Booker's the name you have.
So yeah,
I don't have Booker.
I have to jot this in quickly. So yeah, so third team: Gobert, Paul George, Jaylen Brown, Mitchell, Booker. Halfway mark of the season, third team. Joker, Giannis, Kawhi, Beal, and Lillard on my second team. Embiid, LeBron, KD, Steph, Harden on my first.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, at this part of the season, I'm not even saying this is how it's going to end. Look at the end of the year because it may look different. So going forward, I guess is my very last question, really quick. It won't be long, but so going forward, what are your expectations going into the second half of the season? Are
you talking about a player? Is a team?
Yeah. Do you see a team
as the standings?
Anything do you see a team making a leap? Do you see a big trade happening? Do you see Kyle Lowry ending up on the Sixers? Anything what?
I don't want to think about that because as a Raptors fan, you want to keep him, but at the same time,
you get it.
You know that it's a business, and two, as a fan of what he's done, he's earned the opportunity to do whatever he wants, right?
Right.
I think we just see what you already know solidify as the season goes on, right? Miami gets healthy, you see them move up the standings. You see the Knicks move down. You see the Raptors move up. You see a lot of the things you kind of already know solidify of the teams that we have talked about. I think that's what we're going to see going forward. and you're just going to see more of what is real, because we haven't, with all the COVID shit and injuries and people sitting out, we haven't really seen teams together enough to know if it's real. I kind of want to look to watch a little bit more of, say, LaMelo Ball. I want to get a chance to see a little bit more of the Knicks. I want to watch Sixers, just to see all this stuff take shape, right? Because now they're going to start, especially the Sixers, right? Because Doc is such a veteran coach. He's going to start tuning up. And I think he is one of the really, really underrated coaches. And he's going to start tuning up into that playoff run. And we'll see. One of the critiques of the Bucks was that Mike Budenholzer doesn't adapt to situations. So for the Sixers, one of their advantages might be Doc just out-coaching the other guys.
Yeah, that could be it too, because he's been there before and he's been through the wars. And like I said, chip on the shoulder, man. Like how he went out last year, you know, with the flame out and then leaving a job. He's been there for the last 8-9 years. You know, that doesn't sit well with you. And I mean, you can see it because he took the first big opportunity available. It's not like he sat out a year and, you know, let me announce and, you know, do some halftime shows of games. This guy literally hopped on the train and went right to Philly literally within hours. So you know this is sitting on him. Like that's something where he definitely wants to rectify that issue. So
what are you looking for?
I'm looking to see, like I said, I think I mentioned before, I could see Milwaukee. I'm looking to see where they go. They're an interesting, it's funny to call them a wild card, but because of injuries and they haven't been gelling that well, I expect them to make a leap going forward. I want to see what Toronto does by the deadline. So I'm kind of waiting to see what they do first. But if they keep the team the way that they are, I can see them, especially if they can get healthy, because they're starting to really get their footing, you know. And people sleep on the fact too that you still kind of wonder, you know, the fact that they're the only team that's not playing in their home city, you know, being adjusted to a new city, you know, even though it's Tampa, Florida, the weather's nice, everything else, they haven't had to deal with winter, but it's still not your city. You know what I mean? So it's just that whole in and out to that. Your family's not there when you're, you know, for the most part. That's got to be a little bit weird adjustment for them too. So I'm thinking that probably played a small part of why they didn't play so well to start off the year as well. But I'm interested to see what happens with them. And I think the other factor too, outside of the New Jersey, sorry, I keep saying New Jersey, but the Brooklyns, the Lakers, and even the Jazz that we were talking about earlier, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Portland, because they're getting back McCollum and they should be getting back Nurkic in a couple of weeks. So, and they're right now, I think they're 5th in the West. So I want to see what kind of once those guys get back into this offense, get back onto this team with Covington, with Carmelo playing well coming off the bench. How is that going to look the second half of the season for them too? Because Damian Lillard's been playing amazing and he's been keeping his team afloat. So adding basically about 35 to 40 points a game back into that lineup, what is that going to do for them? You know, so the West is going to be interesting. It's and then I guess and where is Andre Drummond going to go? Is he going to go to a contender? Does he go on the Lakers? You know, will he work on the Lakers? You know, because I know some people question his IQ and stuff, but I think he's he's going there to pick up garbage points and rebound, and that may be enough, right? So
hey, as a dive guy, as a pick and roll dive guy, I watched a bunch of Cleveland games early in the year. He really doesn't complicate the game and has an impact.
I thought he played well this season. I thought he played well. Yeah, I thought he played well this season. Until they benched him, but I thought he was. Yeah, well, I mean
that was a business decision.
Yeah, no, for sure. But
you got a guy who's going to go out there. You don't have to run a play for him. He's going to score 15, 18 points a game, and he's going to get 15, 18 rebounds a game.
Yep.
I think that's all right.
A lot of teams could use that going into – a lot of contenders could use that, especially going into this season. And I mean, shoot, Would it be crazy if Brooklyn ends up getting him?
Yeah, I think that would be a mess because for whatever reason they think DeAndre Jordan's worth $10 million a year.
Right, exactly.
But it is what it is. I think the Celtics would be an interesting spot for him.
They would be, yeah.
But again, none of us knows what's going to happen, and chemistry is one of those really fickle things that if you put the wrong player in the wrong place,
you could destroy the locker room. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think he's that type of guy. Like by all accounts, he seems to be very fine in terms of his where his head's at and stuff.
Yeah, he's really developed into a guy who, in his early days in Detroit, he was literally a numbers guy.
Yeah.
Didn't understand the game, all that, and then when you watch him in Cleveland, his DHO reads are pretty good. Not crazy, like he's not blowing the doors off you, but he's not making mistakes.
Right.
And he's not going to hurt you in those areas. He's going to help you in the ways he can, and it looks as though he's learned to play inside himself.
Yeah, so
when you have a guy like that can help.
Yeah, I think all that's going to be interesting where he ends up too. But I guess we'll wrap up for now. But Bill, look, man, thank you so much for coming on this podcast, man. It was a fun conversation to be had.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Before we go, man, plug your stuff, man. Where can plug your show? Plug your show real quick.
Plug my show.
Plug your show,
man.
Shameless plug yourself for the next 30 seconds. Go ahead, go.
The Royal City Hoops one I had to put on the back burner because I'm working on another project for work that I'm calling the Flaccid Hammer. Being in the trade is harder than it looks. So the basketball podcast is probably going to have to be a once a month thing versus once a week. And the other thing's getting all my attention. And I run a business, so that gets a lot of my attention too. And I got 2 kids. So I just love being able to come out and talk hoops with you. And I'm glad you were able to do it with me, and hopefully we get to do it again.
Yes, no problem. We will, especially when the playoff season comes, because I usually do, especially Raptors over the last few years. I have this tradition of doing post-game podcasts of these Raptors playoff games. So, yeah, we'll be seeing you again at some point, I'm sure.
All right, Calvin. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ave Podcast. Special shout out goes out to Bill Gagne of the Royal City Hoops Podcast, which you can check him out on his YouTube channel. Go check him out. Thank you as always for tuning in. We got a new episode of the Ave Podcast next week for you. For you listeners that are here for the first time, rate and review this episode and subscribe to all of the shows on South Shore Ave Radio. And also, welcome. The South Shore Ave YouTube channel once again is up and running. Check that page out. That's youtube.com/South Shore Ave. Like and subscribe. Leave comments. Let me know how you feel about them. I appreciate all the love. And check out SouthShoreAve.com for all my past episodes for my catalog. Once again, that's SouthShoreAve.com. I'll say it one more time. That's SouthShoreAve.com. For Bill Gagne, this is Cal C. And you've just tuned in to the Ave Podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. Until next week, folks, peace. We out.